The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes!
Thanks, Sinistar. Tyler, how are you? Tyler Glaiel?
Glaiel, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I got it. There is a commenter on Destructoid.com. One of the jobs I have is working there, whose name is Tyler Glaiel, and I always think it's you. Is that you?
No.
Oh, gosh.
Probably not me. I don't think I've commented on Destructoid in...
Not yet, you haven't.
Ever? I don't think I've ever commented on Destructoid.
But now you are the subject of a Destructoid post.
Yeah.
Of an article. I wrote a little article about you. I said, and I quote, "The last time I saw Tyler in real life, he was dead set on buying some swimming trunks and taking a ride down a water slide." This is the true story, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm remembering that like a dream.
Yeah,
that's all true. That actually happened. And we talked about Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's New Island.
Oh, yeah, that trade.
Which you love! You love that game!
Oh, yeah, I love that game so much I couldn't even bear myself to beat it, because then it would be over. And then I wouldn't be able to enjoy it anymore.
What a fun spin. You could be a video game journalist with that spin on it. From what I gathered about you in that discussion, you feel very strongly about the difference between good video game design and not so good design. Because you like Yoshi's Island, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody likes Yoshi's Island and stuff.
You'd be surprised.
I don't know, I've never met anyone who just outright hates Yoshi's Island or anything.
There's a guy
I think at the very least everyone respects Yoshi's Island, right?
I love your world. You talk to your world is made up of video game developers a lot of the time and people with good taste in video games. You're not a video game journalist, not yet anyway, Tyler. In my world, I interact with people every day. If I were to say on Destructoid.com, Yoshi's Island, everyone likes that game. Fuck you! Just immediately. Fuck you and your fucking Yoshis, just right off the bat. That's how little respect they have. So it's a big world. There's all sorts of tight tastes, things.
Right.
I'm going to try to turn it down a notch. I'm yelling at you for some reason. We'll start at the top. Tyler, how did you get into video game development? How'd that happen? Guitar chords.
Someone's playing something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it
was I basically got into it when I was about 11 years old, like middle school, long time ago, but not really that long ago. But yeah, so I'd always been somewhat interested in it, and I'd always been like a creative child and stuff when I was younger, and it was I made the first game that I actually made was from I got a version of Flash 4 from family friends, like not a legit copy of Flash 4, like a family friend burned a CD and gave it to us, and me and my dad and my brother, he'd play around with it, making little animations and stuff. And at some point I learned that you could make something that when you click it, it goes to a different frame of the animation. And so I made a game using basically just that, where I animated a button around, and you could click it, and it would go to the next frame, and it was called Pigeon Pooper. So I had a little pigeon following the mouse, and people would move around on the screen, and you could click them to poop on them, and they would make a noise. It would go to another frame of the animation where they would make a noise, and then another guy would come out. And it was all hard-coded animation. It was like 6 frames a second or something.
At 11, Pigeon Pooper.
Yeah.
What year was this?
2001.
What? So and the other thing about
or like the beginning of 2002, like before I turned 12.
So you were born in like 1990.
Yes.
I think I had already lost my virginity at that time. I could be your dad. This happens.
You probably could be my dad.
Yeah, if I were irresponsible. Always use a condom, kids. I also vaguely, this feeling I have about you is that you're sort of a Doogie Howser-style boy genius of video game development. I didn't want to write that in the post because, one, I could be wrong. You can't fact check that. Like, is Tyler Glaiel
Yeah, well,
a Hauser? Like, it won't come up
Glaiel.
on Google.
Well,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm 24 years old now. I'm almost 25, so boy genius is probably not the right word anymore.
Doogie Howser grew up and he's doing pretty well, but at one point,
Right. I don't know who Doogie Howser is.
This is evidence you're a boy genius, because boys don't know who Doogie Howser is. It's Neil Patrick Harris's pivotal sitcom role. He played a doctor who was in high school, but he was already being a doctor. And you were making video games for sale when you were. Geez, Closure is the first game of yours that I bought.
That was the first one that was on sale. That was the first one that you could actually buy.
And how old were you when that came out?
Let's see. I was 21 when that came out.
That's a Doogie Howser right there. You got a game on PSN. Or it didn't start on PSN, or
no, it launched on PSN.
It did, didn't it? On consoles, 21. That's a Hauser. And you worked on Aether with Edmund Macmillan. Jeez.
That was in 2008.
When you were, what, then, 18? Good grief.
Yeah, that was like right between high school and college for me.
Yeah. Did you have a sense then, because Edmund is quite well known now, he was somewhat well known then, too. And that game was put up for awards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think we won an honorable mention at Indiecade for it. But yeah, no, Edmund was well known back then, but it was like a Newgrounds well known kind of thing, not like a world well known. Sure. And I had been submitting games to Newgrounds for years, and so everybody who was submitting to Newgrounds just kind of eventually got to know each other because it was a pretty good community of creative people.
Sure. And there was no precedent back then. Newgrounds, of course, now is known as where the Behemoth got their start, where Edmund got their start, where you got your start. It's well known for that, but at the time there was no precedent for a place like Newgrounds eventually launching careers or anything. The only people around it really loved it.
Yeah, I mean it really was a lot of like high school and college students and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, surprising amount. It still kind of is, but it's not as big as it used to be.
Sure.
So it's not like this massive, all-encompassing, like creative hub that it was from like 2004 to 2008 or so.
Sure. Yeah.
But
that's because, in part, the internet has changed so much that there's so many different places to put your games these days. But 2004.
Right, but it's not quite the same anymore. Like I kind of miss it because back then, Newgrounds was like the hub for if you made a Flash game, you put it on Newgrounds. That was like what you did. If it got on the front page of Newgrounds, you'd get 500,000 people playing it. And then you could also put it on the rest of the other sites around that were like Armory Games and Congregate when it was first starting up and stuff like that. Sure. And it's not quite the same anymore. There's no like good place for you to put a free online game and have a really big audience for it.
Do you
like
think
Congregate is kind of popular now still, but it's not the same as like Newgrounds was back in the day.
Why do you think that is? What do you think changed?
It was the mobile phones, probably.
Oh, I forget about them.
Almost definitely it was the mobile phones. Everyone that was making free Flash games, it's like the same market just migrated to mobile because you could actually make money on making games for phone. And because you couldn't really do Flash games for phone, so people moved away from stuff that could run in the browser. Stuff happens. Everything changes and evolves over time, and you either change with it or you...
You say like a wise old man of 25 years old.
I don't know. Tech moves really fast.
It sure does, and you've seen a lot of changes.
Every year, every 6 months, everything just changes again. It's like... It gets hard to keep up with sometimes.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I'm still having trouble keeping up. So, in total, how many games, do you even have a ballpark guess as to how many games you've worked on?
If you want to count all the Flash games, it's like 50-ish.
Wow. Really?
Probably a little more than that, but it's sort of like, it's a weird number because almost all of them are not that good. Like, they're the types of games where anyone starting now would make these games be like, this sucks, and they would just never show it to anyone. But because I was like a like a dumb teenager when I was making them. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to show it to everyone on the internet, and I did. And so all these like little games that I made that were like learning experiences, learning how to program, learning how to do Flash animations, learning how to do business stuff, which is also, you know, a skill
Sure.
involved in games and stuff. I'd put them on Newgrounds. People would find them pretty cool because, you know, they're free.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of games on Newgrounds that people didn't necessarily think were cool. You made, did you make Aqua Slug? Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh, I did make Aqua Slug, yeah. That was a fun one.
Tell us about Aqua Slug for people.
It wasn't very good. Okay, ArmorGames.com, which used to be Games of Gondor before they had to change because it was, you know, trademark infringing Lord of the Rings or whatever. They used to hold all these like Flash game contests where you'd make a Flash game for them, put all their branding in your Flash game, and then if you placed highly in their contest, you'd get money for it. And they had subcategories and stuff. So this was one of their contests that they were running. One of the subcategories was summer-themed games. So we made it in August in 3 weeks for that. I made it with Nick Pasto, who he's still making games. I think he's gone full-time indie, recently. But we made it in 3 weeks for this competition. I'm pretty sure we got first place for the summer games category. I think we got like 4th or 5th for the overall contest or something.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think we got like $2,000 for it or something.
Really? That's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Especially not bad when you're a teenager.
Yeah. How old were you then?
16, I think.
So you were in high school?
Yeah.
Just making a video game in 3 weeks that ends up earning you $2,000. Did you tell the other kids in high school, like, I just made, you split it?
I don't think I ever told them the exact amount of money or anything, but I definitely told people that, like, I was making money doing it, so that's why I didn't have to go get a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken like everyone else in my school did.
And where did you go to high school? Where was that? Where they?
It was Westfield High School. It was Westfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The western side of the state. I don't know. You're in Boston, right?
In the Boston area.
Or
Yeah,
Cambridge
pretty close to Boston.
something.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So
Right,
complete other side of the state.
Sure. Where there isn't a whole lot to do in Western.
No, there was absolutely nothing to do. We lived on the outskirts of a town that was on the outskirts of the state.
Where Massachusetts meets Connecticut.
So yeah. My neighbors had a cornfield. My other neighbors had a cow field, and I was like,
take your pick, corn or cow.
Corn or cows, yeah.
Today.
It was very quiet. There wasn't a lot to do. It was a large land area city, so until I had a car, I didn't really have very many opportunities to go and just hang out with people.
Sure.
Because all my friends were like 20 minutes on the other side of town and stuff.
Right, and without a car,
right.
What can you do?
Yeah, so sat inside and learned how to make video games.
Huh? So that had something to do with it. Anyone else?
So.
Anyone you grew up with make video games along with you, or was it pretty?
No. I was the only one in my school who was doing anything like that. I don't know if I was the only one who was even programming. Like, I think some people eventually got into that stuff later on, but I was definitely like the most into that when I was in high school, and it was fun. It was a lot. It was you could get easy A's in school by demonstrating skills that nobody else in your school had.
I have another vague recollection of you that could be wrong, that you like somehow got all the grades, like every A possible or something. Or you like exploded a skill with your brain or something. What did you do?
Yeah, I got most of them. What?
Yeah, was there a specific story though about you like not having to go to school because you were so smart or something like that?
No, I went to school. It was fun. I said I lived in the middle of nowhere, so that was like the opportunity where I got to see my friends was at school and at school-related events and stuff.
See, this is where my recollection gets foggy and dreamlike. I'm remembering.
Oh yeah, no, there was something. It was the National Honor Society lounge room. If that's probably the story you're remembering.
That's it. Because you were so smart, you had to do less work. Is that right?
Yeah, our school had a very good reward program for that, where if you had a certain GPA in school, like over 90%, they didn't use 4-point scale. They switched to just regular percentages. So like over 90% GPA, you got something called a gold card, which you could use to skip 2 final exams and 2 midterms, which was awesome. So, like, if you did well in school, you could basically take a day off, or take 2 days off, or 3 days off, because there wasn't any final exam for, like, the band classes, and I took a whole bunch of those since I didn't feel like taking many other classes in high school that I wasn't going to get anything out of.
Sure.
And they were fun, too. So final exams would come around, and I'd have, like, 2 finals to take, and I'd make sure that they were, like, both on the same day and skip the ones that weren't on that day, and then I'd just take a week off of school for that.
And what would you do during that week?
I'd probably make video games.
I had that feeling because it was fun for you. You have the kind of brain.
Yeah, it was very fun.
And for other people, it would be a scary, painful challenge. But you have the kind of brain that wants to grasp onto a challenge like that, and you like enjoy it. You enjoy the and you work. Do you work out as well?
I started doing that last year.
How'd that go? Or how's that going?
I'm still doing it.
Yeah? How is it?
Yeah. It's very fun. I'm paying for a personal trainer, which is a bit expensive and stuff, but it's extremely worth it.
Really? Pretty amazing. Jeez. When I think about your school compared to my school, like your school seemed like a classic Konami game where the better you do, the more power-ups you get, and then the easier the game gets because like you didn't die, so you got to keep the spread shot in Contra or the late in Gradius.
I'd say that's a very good analogy.
Yeah, thank you.
Even ignoring the skipping final exams part of it, and you got into the honors and AP level classes and stuff, a lot of the teachers would trust the students to, do their homework and learn appropriately. So there was less like do 100 math problems to prove that you know this thing, and a lot more of like flexibility there.
Well, I think in my school, the vice principal once looked at the table I sat at and said, "If I just had a grenade, I could just roll it under that table, and all the problems in the school would be gone." They were expecting. I think that's the actual quote. He had a bushy mustache. That guy. Still remember him. So we had very different experiences. Maybe that's why I didn't end up making video games. But maybe not, because you started making them so early. And when you made Pigeon Pooper.
Pigeon Pooper, yeah.
Pigeon Pooper.
That game and its sequel are both on my website. But keep in mind, I was 11 when I made it, so I do have my voice acting in the game from when I was 11.
Voice acting?
And it's extremely high-pitched.
This is a must-play. And what is the sequel to Pigeon Pooper called, pray tell?
Pigeon Pooper #2.
Of course. Did you make that at 11 as well, or did
I think I was 12 or 13 when I made that one. It's hard to remember the exact year because I definitely was learning very fast, but I don't remember how fast I was learning and if it was like a 2 years thing or like a 6 months thing. So
sure. And how did you top Pigeon Pooper with Pigeon Pooper #2? What did you do differently?
Pigeon Pooper #2 was actually like a game. It wasn't just clicking buttons. You could move it around with the arrow keys and press spacebar, and the things would move around randomly and shoot at you. And it was actually a quite impressive game for the time I made it.
Sure, for a 13 or 12 or 13-year-old.
Huh. I was really proud of both of those games. I burned them on CDs and printed labels and stuck them to them and was selling them for $5 at my school.
Did people buy Pigeon Pooper #2?
I think like 6 people bought it.
It's not bad.
Not bad. I earned like $30 from it, and I think probably about the same for the first one.
Sure. And your high school, I assume, wasn't too massive.
This was middle school.
Middle school, even better. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I stopped doing that in high school.
Huh. Was that making the CDs? Yeah.
Yeah, because I started posting them on Newgrounds like when I was like a freshman in high school.
Sure.
I think that was like 2004. I don't know if this was like the beginning of high school, like the beginning of that year later on, but I was posting them on Newgrounds, and eventually I was making money that way. That was way more than if I was just selling $5 CDs at my school.
So Newgrounds was a profit deal as well. It wasn't just the Aquaslug contest. It was Newgrounds as well?
It was sponsorships, which...
right.
And it was Armor Games at first. Well, Games of Gondor at first before they had to change it to Armor Games for what should be obvious reasons. But
Sure.
But I remember what happened was I had advertisements on my website, and they don't make advertisements don't really make much money. They didn't make much money back then either, but they because my website wasn't popular when I first put the advertisements up, the CPM on them got up to like $10 because they were just Google advertisements. They're like, because it was getting like 10 views a month or something like that. So it really wasn't any money at all, but it was $10 CPM, which is absurd.
Sure.
So I'd released a game called Magnetism, which was the first game that I released that actually got somewhat popular, posted on Newgrounds. I got on the front page. The way Flash games worked back then was if it got on the front page of Newgrounds, every site would take that game and rehost it themselves, and it would get tons and tons and tons of views. So I remember one day, like I released the game, and then I went on vacation, and I got back and I checked my website views, and they had like skyrocketed. It was getting like 10,000 views a day.
What? Really? And was this still at the $10 CPM?
Yeah, for a couple of days. It adjusted pretty fast. So I like get home, I'm like, I made $100 in a day, and then I made $100 in the next day, and then I made $100 in the next day, and then it started dropping. But it was like $1,000 in a month or something.
Wow, off Magnetism.
Off Magnetism.
And how long was it on the front page of Newgrounds?
Like a week.
Right, and that would be enough. Huh.
Yeah.
So once you taste that, you immediately started working on Magnetism 2 or something along those lines.
No, what happened was Armor Games offered me a sponsorship to make Magnetism 2.
And how old were you at that point?
I was 14 when I released Magnetism, and I think I was 15 when I released Magnetism 2. So it was like right around my 15th birthday or so.
Wow.
Which is really cool because I was like in high school, and it was like, $1,000 is a lot of money for a high school student.
Especially 10 years ago or so. It's worth a lot more. If you were able to make $1,000 a month back then, that would have been like...
Right. It wasn't. It didn't stay at $1,000 a month, but it was...
Could have.
It could have. It could have, yeah.
For all you knew, the next game was going to be...
I forget how much money I was offered for Magnetism 2, the sponsorship. I think it was like $1,500 or something. $1,200 or $1,500.
And how long did it take you to make Magnetism 2?
2 months or something.
All right.
I don't remember.
Sure.
1 or 2 months. I worked pretty fast back then.
And were you in the Gold Star Smart Kids Lounge at that point?
No, that was a couple years later.
Right.
That was
so you were still having to do
and senior year.
Sure.
Right.
You were still attending school 40 hours a week or whatever and doing homework, and then also making Magnetism too.
The homework was... I did it all in homeroom, like the 5 minutes of homeroom that you had before school started. Because you get to school, you go to homeroom, and you sit there for 5 minutes while they take attendance and make sure everyone's here, and then you go to your classes. So I would do all my homework in that like 5-minute block, or in other classes when I don't feel like paying attention.
See, I'm 38, and so I have the maturity to contain any sort of envy that I may be experiencing towards you and your capacity to be able to get through these difficult things more easily than the rest of us. But you must have experienced some what they call there's some terms for it that are kind of mean. In fact, the whole term nerd, I think, came up because some guys were jealous of guys that were smarter than them. So instead of being like, you're smarter, let me help you, they said, you're a nerd, I'm going to beat you up. Did you have to go through a lot of that?
No.
No?
My school was very good about it. I think they separated people out enough that it never became an issue.
Huh? So you didn't have any
there was a lot of honors and AP classes, and there were actually a lot of people in those classes that were smart, because it kind of had to be to get in those classes.
Sure.
And, there was incentive to actually work towards that stuff because you could skip exams.
Yeah.
Like the barrier for skipping one exam was like a 80% average, which was not all that difficult to get if you just did your homework in every class. It was something like 25 or 30% of the school got at least that.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
good.
it wasn't like a top 1% kind of deal, but they separated people out. They had a lot of opportunities for people to do cool things for the school and stuff. And all my friends were smart people. I don't know. It was just it wasn't what you'd think about in the movies for that kind of stuff.
And you're also 9 feet tall, which doesn't hurt.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I was for like 3 of the 4 years in high school.
that's kind of a lot. It's much harder to push the 9 foot tall kids face in the sand and whatnot.
And of course, there's always people that are going to be idiots and stupid and annoying, and jerks and stuff. And I would mostly just ignore them.
Yeah.
I could. Like, if you didn't give people a reaction, they wouldn't give a reaction back, and they just move on to somebody else.
And that's one of the ways it seems like you've stayed out of a lot of internet drama as well.
Yeah.
You've made a billion games. You know, a lot of people in the game industry. You're making Bombernauts now. You're still working on Bombernauts? Remember this correctly? Very cool video game, which we'll talk about soon. But you've managed to stay above a lot of the drama that's been afoot on the internet.
Oh yeah, that's actually been quite difficult because I obviously have things to say about it all, but I don't want to get involved in it because it's not worth it. Plenty of other people are doing that for me.
Sure, there's people who are talking, and I find myself in it too. But I try to stay. Yeah. Just treat others as I would want to be treated, and you know, not make any judgments, and not get personal with a stranger on the internet. Thing that sounded a little.
It's not even about being neutral because I'm not like I don't have a neutral opinion or anything. I have an opinion. I just don't want to get involved. I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to label other people. Yeah. I think that's extremely counterproductive overall.
Sure.
And you know, it's like what I learned about in high school. If you just ignored people, they would ignore you back, and it worked then. It's working now. Yeah. I respect the fact that there's people out there that don't have the ability to ignore it for I don't mean like the skill, but they are in a position where they actually can't ignore it.
Right.
Like I respect that. I respect that it's different for those people than it is for me, but for you, you can ignore.
So
I can ignore it, so I will.
Yeah. And you never even, because you do have very passionate opinions about what games are well designed and which aren't. But
something in the background of your camera just like
fell
apart.
Really? Probably my William Shackle set. I can adjust it if you like.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. It's artistic now.
Yeah. That's right. But yes, is it going down? Oh, I'm going to get it up. Well, that sounds bad. Well, everything's falling apart.
Just ignore it. Yeah.
You sure?
It's a good metaphor for the internet.
Yeah, and for my life. There it goes. That's okay. Oh, look, I was insistent. There's this phantom arm. It came in. Yes. Can you think of a time when you talked about a video game and you ended up in like an angry debate about it? Has that ever happened to you?
I'm sure it's happened. It's hard to think of specific examples. I think, let's see. I know that when BioShock Infinite came out, everyone loved it, except for me. And I think over time people have learned to realize that I was right. I'll put it that way.
Sure.
It's more than everyone sort of came to the same conclusion that it was the game was actually kind of disappointing compared to the original BioShock, and I know I was arguing about it on the internet for a bit.
and do you think that's because of your design sensibilities and your knowledge of the back end, what goes on under the hood of a game design, that you picked up on things that other people were just filled with the hype? And in my opinion, BioShock Infinite did paint a beautiful world. It was an interesting.
Oh yeah, it absolutely painted a beautiful world. It had cool, sound design, art design, world design. It was just I could go into it, but people have gone into it enough already. It's just as a game designer, I like thinking about games critically, which usually just means thinking about what they did wrong more than what they did right. Unless there's like a really good specific example of something a game does right, it's easier to find things not to do. And you have to think. You got to think about them that way a lot. Like,
Yeah. Well, when you're making them, I'm
Right.
assuming, and this is something I talk to a lot of people who are just getting started in some creative pursuit. They're so excited about their idea, and the feeling that resonates in them is this must be a good idea because it feels good to make it. And
Right.
sadly, what you have to do in any creative pursuit is you get the idea out there and it feels good and you spit it all out. Then you need to put on a critical lens and be like, oh, but I have to make sure
Yeah.
that this doesn't secretly suck, and I was biased towards it because I enjoyed making it. So I didn't
oh yeah,
see it.
that's probably one of the hardest hurdles to overcome when you're making games. Like, all my Flash games are up until like up until Ether. I'm pretty sure every game before that was pretty bad by most people's standards. They would not enjoy those types of games nowadays or anything. Like, it was just the time was. They were fun to make, and I appreciate some of the ideas that I put into them, but they're not good games.
But when you made Pigeon Pooper and Pigeon Pooper,
Oh yeah, no, it was.
the feeling was good.
I was super proud of it. It was, yeah, that's why I was printing them on discs and selling them, because I was too stupid to realize that this probably isn't a game that people would want to spend money on.
And 6 people did.
Yeah.
Your confidence was contagious, and they figured if he's selling it, then I'm buying it. And who knows? It may be worth something these days.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So Aether came out. Ether.
Ether.
Yeah, I don't know. I can never pronounce it right. And that was winning awards. Is that when you started to think a little bit more about moving towards commercial as opposed to just the Newgrounds route? Was that the period? Then?
That was. I think Armor Games sponsored it. So that was commercial games back then, was getting sponsorships, because you could spend a month on a game and get like $5,000 for it.
No, that is impressive. But I guess the way I should have worded it is, as opposed to sponsorship, where from what I'm gathering from what you're telling me, you have like a sorry.
It was Closure, I think.
Closure.
The Flash version of Closure was like, after that game came out, I was like, wow, people really like this game, and there's so much more we could do with it. We could make a commercial one, and that was in it was in the very beginning of 2009 that the Flash version of Closure came out, and we started it in 2008. So that was like right after Braid and Castle Crashers came out, which was like a really pivotal moment for indie games. I think World of Goo was also around that time. So it was like a really pivotal moment for indie games where everyone was like, wow, people are making a lot of money just making games and selling them for cheap-ish. And
yeah, for them.
It's not necessarily the money aspect of it at that time. Like, Braid was highly influential because I was like, wow, games can be more than just fun mechanics and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I've backtracked on that a bit. A little bit.
They can be more.
It's not that I've backtracked on it. They can be more, but I've come to realize since then that there's also tremendous value in just really well put together game mechanics like Spelunky or Dark Souls. Like, those games, like, there's not much like artistically like valuable about them, and I'm putting that in quotes because there is, but it's not like a I'm gonna play this game and have an epiphany about life in the universe and stuff. But they're artistically valuable in the sense that they're really well put together mechanics that work together. Like, okay,
but you are one of those guys, though, and I talk to these guys on the show quite a bit. A lot of game developers, I guess you're a type that's like, oh, there's a thing that's impossible? I want to do that. Give me that game, the game that I will never win, like Spelunky or any of the Souls games. They speak to something that resonates, it seems, in you, this love of a challenge.
It's not the love of a challenge. It's like the love of like complicated systems and mechanics and stuff. And not complicated, because Spelunky's systems are actually really simple, but there's a lot of depth to them. Like, you can throw a pot, it can bounce off the wall, or a rock can bounce off the wall, hit the dog, make it start moving, dog falls down. you can pick up the dog, and then you can use the dog to absorb an arrow from a trap, and it's just like there's a very well-defined set of things that happen in Spelunky, and so many ways that they all fit together, and it's like it would be a great game even if it was easy.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's plenty of games like that. Like I wouldn't say that something like Super Metroid is all that difficult of a game.
Sure. No, it's not too hard.
And well, it's hard if you're trying to do speedrunning, low percent runs and stuff
Sure.
like that. Like you can make it a challenge, but it's not that hard of a game. Pretty much everyone who plays it can beat it eventually. But it's still got that same sort of like really well put together game mechanics and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just a game like Dark Souls and Spelunky just uses difficulty as a tool in the game design. It's not the point of the game design. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Dark Souls is difficult because it needs to be difficult for that game to work. If you could just breeze through the game, nobody would really care that much about it.
You wouldn't dig into it. You wouldn't find out how deep it was if you.
Yeah, you wouldn't learn the areas of the game. Like you wouldn't learn all the landmarks if you didn't have to run past them 50 times, dying to that one guy on the roof.
but I can't help it. I'm harping on it. Get ready for me to harp. A lot of people wouldn't bother with a game like that because they would meet a roadblock and be like, I'll play something that's a little more. But you're the type of guy who's like, roadblocks? How do we get through them using the design? You're excited
Mostly.
to.
I like a challenge, but I don't like a pointless challenge. Like I don't like I want to be the guy style games. Like those are just purposely difficult for the sake of being difficult and unfair, and not very forgiving. The difficulty doesn't really have, like, it doesn't work into the design very well. That is the point of the game, is to be difficult, but it's not really used as a tool to achieve something greater than just being difficult.
Sure.
I respect the fact that people enjoy those games and enjoy watching streamers play them, especially. But it's not, it's a different type of game. Pointless difficulty is one thing, but I never felt like Dark Souls was pointless.
No, and Dark Souls, it helps you get somewhere. Like, in I Want to Be the Guy, you don't feel like you're technically better at it. You just like eventually got lucky or figured out the trick.
Or memorized the thing to do.
Yes, that's what I was meaning to say. But for me, the point of I Don't Want to Be the Guy is comedy. Like, it is a physical comedy game of, like, a guy got kicked in the balls, the game, it could be called. And it just hurt. Yeah. It's funny to watch yourself get hurt. I respect the game for that aspect of it. It does it does that very well. Yeah. I don't really personally like playing those games at all because they're way too difficult and unfair. And you want to be productive. You want to be learning something and growing in some way. And it is funny, but the joke sometimes gets old. There's a new one called 50 Pinch Barrage. I wish you had played it. I would ask you what you think of it. It's on the 3DS.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it came out, I think, like 2 weeks ago. I love it. But it is stupid, and I know it's not, like, super well designed. I'm trying to figure out how to review it. You play, like, a terrified Japanese man on an island who just dies a lot and is sad. He just screams and sweats and cries. Maybe you'll love it.
Maybe.
Did you play 1001 Spikes? I can't remember.
I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, not quite your cup of tea.
It was well designed, but it was also really frustrating.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you are busy making video games, so when you're playing a game, you don't want it to feel like it's time wasted in any way.
Right. But, I can respect 1001 Spikes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It had a lot of interesting ideas in it, but it was, at its core, it's still like I don't know. I liked Super Meat Boy, and that was a really tough game, but...
Well, Super Meat Boy, the physics, the mechanics, it felt like you were learning to, like, play a sport almost.
Yeah.
Whereas 1001 Spikes, it is a little bit like learn the traps and then get through the traps. A little bit less about the mechanics, more about the puzzle solving. I'm off on a wild tangent.
What were we talking about before?
I don't even know.
Something 2008 or something. I don't know.
We could go back to then, or we could make sure that we talk about what you want people to know about what you're doing now. Well, they should know about Clojure because they could still buy that.
Right,
So
right,
maybe we'll talk a little bit about Clojure and then how Clojure informed what you're working on now, which I believe is Bombernauts and something else, or just Bombernauts?
Bombernauts and some other random secret stuff. That, no.
Whoa, secrets, really? So back to Clojure. Braid is out. Castle Crashers is out. You're thinking,
Right.
there's this new thing, this new kind of thing. We can do.
Yeah, it was like, oh, it makes artistically valuable stuff that has like meanings and feelings and stuff, and then we made Aether in 2 weeks, and then I started working on Clojure.
You made Aether in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
People, real quick, run down Aether for people who haven't played it. What the heck is Aether?
It's a game that I made with Edwin McMillan in 2008 between high school and college, like the 2 weeks before I started college. Flash games were easy to make back then. You could make them really fast. And you had you were a kid riding this little octopus monster who could grapple the clouds with his tongue, and you could use them to swing around and get higher and higher and higher until you're up into space. And then you could fly around space and find these other planets that would all have a little puzzle on them, and you could solve all the planets. And it was a pretty cool game. You had all these gravity mechanics and stuff, and moons and planets all had a little twist. Like there was a water planet, which you could float in the water on it. There was a gas planet, which had really high friction, that every single person who played the game thought it was high gravity and not high friction.
Oh, interesting. Huh. And what was your part in designing that stuff? Did you come up with concepts with Edmund, or?
It was a long time ago, so it's hard to remember the exact details of it, but I think what happened was, and I have a pretty good memory. I have better memory than most of you, but what happened was, I think Edmund came to me and said, Florian's busy, you want to make a game.
Florian, who he made Time with Tuck and...
No, he made
Gish.
No. He made it was the Binding of Isaac programmer.
Oh, he made Gish with the Cryptic Sea guy. Oops.
Yeah. This was Florian did a lot of Flash games with him, Triachnid and Cunt.
Oh, right. Good old.
Right.
Sure.
Good old Cunt. But yeah, Florian was busy with I don't know doing something, and so he came to me and was like, "You want to make a game?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "All right, I got this idea for a game where you grapple clouds to go up in the sky, and then you can find the moon and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And so like 2 days later, I had like a prototype of flying around space and all this crazy gravity stuff and the swinging, and it was really cool looking. And we just polished that up and released it.
Just like that.
Yep.
Pretty darn weird. Yeah, and that did very well in terms of awards and
yeah, people loved it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of praise. We got honorable mention for the Indiecade Festival.
And then you thought Clojure time. Is that what you thought?
Yeah, I think no. Clojure was only a few weeks after Aether Clojure was October that I started working on it.
Okay.
So it was a different. It was similarly inspired, where I wanted to make a game that was, it had a cool mechanic behind it, and also a pretty cool like story and meaning behind it and whatnot. And I started working on it. And I was in college at the time where I was working on it.
Really? Like doing actual college? Like doing the college
doing the college stuff.
That's not... Ugh. All right. And you were coding and designing on Clojure and working with an artist, is that right?
Yeah, I was coding and designing and the level design, all that stuff, and the music for the Flash version at least.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I did the music for the Flash version of Aether too.
Oh,
I
cool.
haven't done music in a long time though, but
Huh, but you still could though. Huh.
I maybe still could. I wasn't really that good at it, and it was like luck whether or not I'd make something that sounded good or not.
Well, that's art and music. They tend to be a little bit more luck-based, I think, than coding and design. Well, or maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not, but I was way more motivated to improve on coding and design and work hard at that than I was to work hard at music well, I never was motivated to work at art at all. I was always terrible at it.
But do you think I know it's a tangent, but I gotta jump on this because I'm curious about your opinion on it. You see what music and what art is really popular. You know, like the biggest movie is Transformers 4, the biggest song is Pitbull and his friend Doki or something, and they're just like, you know, falling down on screens, and that's the big hit song. Whereas game design, do you think it falls into the same trappings these days that mainstream art and music often do, where it's not so much the most well-crafted stuff, but it's just the stuff that is marketed in such a way?
Undeniably, yes.
Really? So,
yeah. Like, I mean, come on, like Call of Duty is marketed every year, and it sells 1 million copies or more, like 10 million copies every year and stuff. Like, it's like I consider that game to be like the Transformers of like the really high budget junk food action movie of video games and stuff.
Sure. But you like junk food action video games now and again, it seems like.
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Did you play Battlefield Hardline?
No, but I definitely played Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was really fun.
Yeah. We were talking with Dave Oshry, who's really into the heists. I wonder how you'd get along with Dave, actually. You two would be an interesting team. Have you met him before?
I don't think I've ever met him.
Yeah, if he stood on your head, you two would make like a 12-foot tall, 15-foot tall man. He's a small, sexy man with sunglasses. And you're a tall, sexy man with a beard. It'd be a perfect team. You'll have to meet him someday. Anyway, Closure, you're working on it in college. How long did you work on it for?
I think 3 months.
That's it?
Yeah, the Flash version.
It just doesn't seem very long.
Well, I worked really fast in Flash games and stuff, and there's like a like you can play them and realize that they're not at all on the same level as like the full version of Closure or other commercial indie games. Like they're smaller, shorter, less polished, rougher experiences, and you have to appreciate them for what they were, rather than comparing them on the same level as something that I'd want to release on Steam.
Sure. But still, you started a concept and saw it through completion in 3 months, and you put it out. Was that also on Newgrounds? Or
That was Newgrounds. That was Newgrounds sponsored that one, actually.
Oh, cool. And how did that do?
Oh, it did very well. I think the Flash version of it has almost 3 million plays right now.
Wow.
Which, that's like average for Flash games. At the time when that was released, it was really easy to get millions of plays on them. Really?
I had no idea. Yeah. I mean, I'd heard that the original Super Meat Boy and another one Edmund was working on. Maybe Florin was on that too.
Time Fuck?
No, not that one. The one where you vomit places.
Spewer.
That's it.
That wasn't Florian. That was Eli. No, was it? I think it was Eli.
Might have been Eli. Yeah, I always wanted that one to come to consoles. It's a fun game. But anywho, I know that they were in the millions, but I didn't know it was common for.
No, it was very common. It was it's across the web. It's common. Like not on any one site in particular, but Flash games in that era spread really fast and would get views really fast, and it was common because. You didn't really get much money for it. They were free, so you didn't get any money for them unless you had an ad in front of it. Even if you had an ad, it was something on the order of like $1,000 for 1 million plays, less, very often less.
Really? So 1 million people see an ad, and you only get $1,000.
Yeah, something like that. It's like a rough estimate of it for Flash games.
Yeah. Sure.
I'd imagine if Flash games were still popular, it would be better now, since I think YouTube views are better than that.
Yeah.
Lately, and I think you could probably target the same kinds of audiences if you really if you were targeting audiences and not just putting some random service that shows an ad for a washing bucket or something, or laundry detergent, or laundry detergent, which seems to be what they advertise on Flash games if you play them now.
Is that right? I was going back into Newgrounds to do research before this episode to see some of the things you did, and I think I did see an ad for like Tide.
I've complained to Tom about that before.
Tom Fulp?
Yeah. I was like, why are all the games on Newgrounds having ads for diapers and washing detergent and stuff? Those can't be earning any money at all on Newgrounds audience. And, it's kind of sad. What happens is that Newgrounds has to, like, scrape the bottom of the barrel for advertisements because they had porn stuff on their site for so long. So
they
couldn't.
Had porn stuff? How did I miss that?
They still do.
Really?
There was a whole, like, adult section on Newgrounds for, like, people could submit anything and they wouldn't censor it. So some people found success submitting porn and hentai games to Newgrounds.
Oh, I thought there was actual ads for like new pornography.
No. There was people were submitting like all sorts of
video games.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And animations and stuff. And I think they're making an attempt to hide it now, unless you have an account or something. But from the 10 years or whatever, like the 15 years that was a significant portion, significant portion of the views on Newgrounds or whatever. All the advertisers that had good rates and stuff just sort of didn't want to deal with that, so they're left to scrape the bottom of the barrel for ads.
I wonder if, do you think Destructoid.com, a video game website that I am one of the managers of, do you think we should have a secret pornography section? People will be like, ooh, I can pay for pornography on the internet.
Destructoid.xxx.
Could happen. Yeah, special members only. A nipple will be shown on the site. Yeah, they'd love that. Gold star. You have to get good grades to get into that section of the site.
Yeah.
Bringing it back there to your life.
I have a couple of top-rated comments or whatever. I don't know if you can rate comments on Destructoid.
Oh, you sure can.
You can. For every thread, the top-rated comment gets access into the adult section. The adult section of Destructoid.
It's an interesting idea, Tyler, and I'm going to bring it up to the management. So Closure, Flash comes out, does pretty well. Then you're thinking consoles? You're like going all the way.
It was big game was what the thought was, because that was what everyone was doing at the time. It was I had started working on it before bringing it to going to my first GDC, I think, because. I was learning C++ in college, and I had known a little bit of C++ before going to college anyway, so I was picking it up really fast, and I just wanted to apply what I was learning. So I started working on the big version of Closure, and brought it to GDC and showed it off in like it wasn't anything during that GDC, but so I was still showing off the Flash version of it. But.
And were you showing it to Sony at that point, saying, I'd like to get this?
No, that was a little later. I had showed it to Nintendo and Microsoft really early on, I think.
Mm-hmm. How did that go?
It didn't work. It didn't go very well. With Microsoft, at least, it didn't go very well. I think I showed it to them way too early, and they a publisher doesn't exactly have an imagination for how a game's going to turn out. And they shouldn't really be predicting how a game's going to turn out based on a demo like that. You can't really do that.
Yeah? Were they rude about it, or did you just saw them?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the guy I was showing it to was basically falling asleep, and he was like, oh yeah, my wife had a baby last night, and I was up all night, sorry. And he was like falling asleep during the presentation. I'm like, oh, well congrats. But
well, that's fair. I mean,
I'm still here trying to pitch my game to Microsoft and whatnot.
Well, but still, that probably doesn't speak that much to the demo. I mean,
right? Yeah, no. And I showed it to Nintendo. I showed it to Dan Adelman.
Oh,
at
cool.
Nintendo. Yeah. And he's a good guy. He could see where the game was heading, and was just like, when it's a little farther along or whatever, email me again, and we can. Because it obviously wasn't ready to start working on console stuff with them.
Sure, and this is back in the WiiWare days, I'm assuming.
Yeah, this was like 2009 or something.
Ah, got it. Yeah, so that was before people knew WiiWare wasn't actually going to be a store to put things on. World of Goo had done well in 2000.
But it was like the first game that was put on it, so it was like it was the only game that did well on WiiWare, I think.
Yeah, I think the Bit Trip games did okay, but not half as good as.
I don't think the Bit Trip games did well until they were on Steam.
Yeah, well, from what they've told me, but they're gonna try to err on the positive. They said, well, we stayed in business on just WiiWare, so we didn't do bad, but compared to how they did on Steam.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't even do that on WiiWare, though, because you had to sell a certain amount of games to even get paid on WiiWare.
That's right, and it wasn't, I think it was MDK2 which is a well-known game series that people hold dear. That still hasn't made the threshold, last I'd heard. Still hasn't made a dime on WiiWare, so that guy's...
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh. But anyway, yes, Closure.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, well, there's still Sony, but I think I'm just going to wait until it's, like, closer to done before pitching it to Sony.
But this is you're in a different kind of development cycle now. You're at a time where you really had to, without any money coming in from the game, from at least if I'm getting this right, you had to keep working on it for like another year, 2 years, 3 years.
In total, it took 3 years. So
wow.
What happened was, I was in college, so money wasn't exactly an issue. Like, I didn't have to be making a living while I was in college. You had parents paying for stuff. You had funds, or I had a fund paying for stuff, and I had some loans and whatnot. So, I think most
supposed to be focusing on college,
right?
You were secretly,
and it's pretty impossible to work your way through college nowadays. Like, you can't. You need way too much time working at a minimum wage job to pay for college or whatever, and I still had some Flash games that I could make in the spare time that were making money.
Right.
But it wasn't like I wasn't desperate for trying to just earn enough to survive.
Sure.
Middle class family and stuff. It wasn't like
So instead of playing video games a lot of the time, your off time was used making Closure, it sounds like.
Yeah. And playing games. but yeah, I'd spent a lot of time working on Closure and stuff, and we had gotten into the IGF, and we won an IGF award in 2010 for audio. And
you're 20 at this point, or 21?
I was 20 no, actually I was 19 because that would have been before I turned 20.
Good grief! So you won an IGF at 19.
Yeah, and we were in the PAX 10 like a few months before that. No, not a few months. Was it? Yeah, actually it was. It was like 6 months before that. We were in the PAX 10 in 2009.
Sure.
And we were in Indiecade in 2009. We won an award at Indiecade. And the PAX 10 didn't have awards, but we were still there. We were sitting across from the Behemoth at PAX 10. And, I'd known Tom from Newground stuff for a while, and he'd played Closure and, told me something along the lines of like, okay, if you don't want to get a publisher, if you have a whole bunch of bad deals with publishers on the table, come and talk to us first, and we'll give you a better deal than that.
Is that Behemoth Tom?
That was Behemoth.
Okay.
Behemoth Tomfall.
Right, because he wears
right.
Uh-huh. Huh,
right.
Wow, so it was almost a Behemoth game, kind of, maybe.
Oh, no, they funded it.
The Behemoth funded Closure? How the heck did I not know that?
It wasn't publicized very well, all things considered.
Well, the Behemoth name carries a lot of weight if people...
Right, well, it wasn't branded as a Behemoth game. It was, they just funded it.
Right. But even having their name...
I think they had like a special thanks credit for it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'd asked them what they wanted to be credited. That was, they told me how they wanted to be credited, and that's how they are credited for it.
Sure. So, and we haven't talked about what Closure actually is. People might not know. Describe Closure as a game a little bit to people.
So Closure is a puzzle platformer. Everything's black and white. The world's completely dark except for the small circular regions where a light orb creates light. And if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. That's the main twist to the whole thing. Is you can only stand on solid ground if it's lit up. So you can carry the light orbs around with you to create platforms and whatnot. And there's spotlights, and there's a whole bunch of other twists on the mechanic, which are usually just things you've seen in platformers before, but when presented in this mysterious world with this cool twist to it, they kind of take on a new life, and you have to think of things a lot differently than you would playing Mario or whatever.
Yeah, and who is the playable character in Closure? Or is that a secret? I'm
still
trying to figure it out.
The playable character in the full version of Closure is there's 4 of them. There's the demon who is the starting tutorial character. It takes place in Purgatory. So the demon finds these masks for these other people who've had some traumatic experience or like a near-death experience or whatever, and he puts on the mask and basically watches the memories of those people, and then so while watching the memories of them, you're playing as those characters.
A girl, a spider type guy thing.
Yeah, the spider guy's the demon. The three.
It's been a demon this whole time.
Yeah, the spider guy's a demon.
Gosh darn it! You don't hit me over the head with that, if I remember correctly.
No, I don't. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be obvious because he's obviously not human looking, and all the other characters are human looking.
Yeah, but
there's a minor, or not a minor. There's a factory worker, a woman, and then a little girl. And,
right.
So I think it's been long enough, and I'm pretty sure I've covered what their stories are because it's not explained clearly in the game. You have to explore.
Sure.
The factory worker suffers an accident in the factory and goes unconscious, and that's when his story for his purgatory story starts. As he's unconscious and trying to escape his accident, in the mine, whatnot. And that is caused by him overworking, working way too much and, getting tired and having an accident, which it's not explained what the accident actually is or anything. That's just sort of it's not really, nothing's explained very much. You have to kind of piece this together.
Sure.
The woman character it's a little more straightforward. She gets in a car accident, her body is taken to the hospital, and then you're basically following it to the hospital. And when you get to the end, her body is sitting there, and there's like a heart rate monitor, beating heart. You go into her body, and that's the end of that. You don't really know if anyone lives or dies. The third story, the little girl, is she wakes up in the middle of the night, and her cat's missing, and so she's chasing her cat around this circus area.
Mm.
And so, as you're solving puzzles in the circus area, you get glimpses of the cat, like a black cat, and it runs away. And at the end, the cat explodes, and then you go back to your house and fall asleep.
So
the trick there is it's not the girl. The twist for that one, and I think a couple of people figured it out, was that it's not the little girl having a life or death experience. It's the cat having a life or death experience.
Because it explodes.
Yeah, because it explodes.
What is that? Well, poor cat. Why?
Well,
why
it's just sort of like
explode?
it's just sort of a abstract representation of the cat dying. I think it's made clear that the cat dies in that one. I don't think that one's left up to explanation like the other, or left up to interpretation like the other two are, because at the end you can see a cat skeleton underground.
I don't know if I ever noticed that. It is an interesting game in that the mechanics are so involving, and they take up so much of your mental bandwidth while you're playing it that the story kind of seeps in sideways. It's not what's hidden.
Yeah, we didn't want to hit people over the head with the story.
Right.
We wanted it to be the same, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist was the main twist of the gameplay.
Right.
And I kind of wanted the story to be the same kind of twist.
Right.
Because when you're playing the game, you're feeling around, you're moving the light around, trying to paint a picture of what the whole level looks like.
Sure.
And I kind of wanted the same thing for the story. You uncover parts of it. You never have the whole picture. You uncover little hints and clues and background decorations and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so if you play it and you search around for it enough, you can sort of piece together what goes on in the story. I don't necessarily think that we did that too successfully or that it was the right decision, but I do like the fact that we tried something unique on that front. And
it fits together perfectly in my brain anyway. And it's funny you would bring it up because it's something that hasn't been, even though we've done almost 200 episodes of the show, I think already, maybe more.
Yeah.
I have to keep track. But it was an idea that hadn't been broached before on the show until a couple of weeks ago. We had David Fox on, who was he was the third employee ever of Lucasfilm Games. He made Zack McCracken, which is a really good point-and-click game. He hired Tim Schafer, gave him his first job. He's a pretty neat guy, and he's making a game called RubeWorks right now, which is all about, and he equates this to point-and-click as well, that there's this space in between what you see and what you conceive might happen, and in that space that your mind creates is where a lot of stuff actually happens, and that's true of Closure as well. You have to envision the whole level, but you can't see the whole level, but you have to make a leap into, well, I think that's going to have a platform on it, but I have to get a light in order to shine on it, and I have to imagine what will happen if that platform isn't there by no longer shining a light on it, and likewise the story. You have to piece together what you don't know and try to figure out what actually happens through basically sideline clues and no voice acting or anything.
No voice acting, not even any text. There was text in the Flash version, which it was kind of like a short poem, and there were lines painted in the background sometimes. And it was like a conversation between the Flash version story was literally just the woman in a car crash story from the full version. It was that, but there were lines painted in the background that was like a conversation between the girl's subconscious thoughts and then what she was hearing other people say, like in the hospital. Like in a coma, other people are saying, and you can hear their voices, and there was text in the background for what she was thinking, and that was done with a different font for what was going on. And it was like a short, like 10 or 12 line poem that was like a little back and forth conversation there. And it worked okay, but I didn't like the fact that there was text. Like it felt a little bit cheesy, and I wanted to, do something else for the full version and go more abstract there.
Sure.
I don't necessarily think it was the right decision or anything, but
well, looking back on it now, do you think that to be more explicit and therefore to have the audience, first of all, the audience has to work a little bit less when you kind of just lay the story out for them, but also you make sure that the idea you want communicated gets through to them. Do you think that Closure might have expected a little bit more out of the audience than the audience was willing to put in, both story-wise, gameplay-wise? So.
I think so. I don't think that it was asking too much gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
I think there were some frustrations in the gameplay that could have been streamlined a bit better, but I don't like. It was a very tough puzzle game. It was a hardcore puzzle game. Like you had to be really into puzzle platformers to want to beat the game and get everything and see all the stuff going on in it. Like, but I don't think that's bad.
No.
I think that there was that. I like that kind of stuff better than like a puzzle game that just sort of holds your hand throughout the entire thing and gives you maybe one or two challenges and then leaves it at that. Like I wanted a game that you'd play it and you'd actually have to think to beat it.
Sure.
But
story-wise, though.
Story-wise, I do think that it was probably asking too much of people to piece together the story like this, and I don't think we gave them enough to clue them in that this is what they had to do. And I also think that having an immediate, this is what's happening now in the present story, we didn't have anything like that. Everything was all past tense.
Right, piecing together memories, trying to see what you can find out, and then extrapolate on what you see. Again, tying it in great with the gameplay, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, but I do think that that there is some value, and that it's actually pretty important that you have a story happening in the now that can keep people engaged in it to the end, so that they can actually, have the motivation to go and try and figure out the backstory of it. And
to put a little fear in them, like something bad might happen unless I move forward. Like it still works for me, even though I'm old and I've seen all the movies, I've played all the video games, I know all the stories. When I'm told by a video game, like if you don't go and do the thing, something bad will happen to somebody. Like my instinct to try to protect other people get kicked in, and I'll play through a difficult part of a game just to rescue some jerk.
Yeah, like even something really simple and stupid, like a save the princess kind of thing is like more than enough motivation to get people to play through the whole game.
Yeah, it really works. Weird.
Yeah.
Really true. That's why they keep
And
doing it.
I think
It
we
works.
were missing that kind of like some I don't know I can't think of the exact word for it. I'm like intrinsic motivation, but like
That sounds good.
I don't know,
Uh,
external. It's something that the game motivates the player to do rather than the player having to motivate themselves.
right. Just being in the world of Closure to me was motivating because it's just a fun.
Yeah.
I love to draw, so just being in a fun, hand-drawn looking world and wondering what I'm going to see next. That kept me going, and of course, the to see what kind of puzzles you came up with was interesting as well. But for some people, they want escapism as opposed to just
Yeah.
design, science, and beautiful artwork. They want to feel like I went to a fantasy land and a thing happened. And it was important,
Yeah.
and I was important in Fantasyland.
I saved the world or something like that.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
plenty of video games like that, as you know. Which brings us to Bombernauts. Do you save the world in Bombernauts?
You blow it up in Bombernauts. No, Bombernauts is the most artistically important video game ever created.
Really? More so than
no.
Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground
More
Zero?
so than Metal Gear Solid 5, more so than Braid or any other lesser game out there.
My goodness. Really? Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I've got to know about this.
Story, you have it's a multiplayer only game. You play as a little robot, and other people play as their own little robot, and you can throw bombs around and destroy the world and try to knock all the other robots into lava.
Is that the story?
Yeah, pretty much.
You know,
The bombs represent society.
and you throw society into the
Yeah, the robots, you throw them in the lava. That represents, I don't know, the human condition or something.
Is it influenced at all by Bomberman? The video
I'd
game?
say so. Like it's influenced. You know, there's bombs and you're blowing things up, so obviously there's going to be some connections made to Bomberman, but it's a different style of game. It's like the world's 3D and voxels, like like a little Minecraft style thing, but it's top-down view.
Sure.
So that's already completely different from Bomberman. The bombs don't explode in plus-shaped patterns. They are round explosions that destroy regions of the tiles underneath and affect the landscape that you're moving around on. You don't actually die by getting hit with the bomb. You die because the bombs put a force on the player, which makes them fly through the air, and you have to knock them off the stage into lava. So that's kind of like a Super Smash Bros. Style death condition.
So
where it's a ring out. It's a ring out,
right?
Rather than a hit someone once and they die kind of thing,
or
a life bar. Yeah.
Yeah. The more you hit a guy with a bomb, though, because in Smash Brothers, it's a lot of fun that your health matters and your position on the map matters at the same time.
So that's not the case right now. I probably am going to add the option to enable that at some point. But that's not the case right now because the point of that mechanic in Smash Bros. Is to limit the length of a match, really. Like the point, because you're fighting in a match, and as your percentages go up, it's more and more likely that you'll be knocked off the stage.
Right. So the more punching or kicking or attacking happens, the more likely you're getting close to the end of the match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an analog to that in Bombernauts already, and that's the stage getting destroyed.
Oh, right.
So the more you play on the map, the more the stage gets destroyed, the harder it is to actually find safe ground on the stage, and moving around becomes, there's a lot of blocking in the way. Sometimes there's going to be areas of the map that are no longer accessible because you'd have to jump too high to get to them, or which you can get around with bomb jumping, but then that's all the advanced techniques and stuff.
There's bomb jumping. So how many inputs does the game have?
There's a button for moving, buttons for rotating the camera, a button for throwing a bomb, button for hitting things with a baseball bat, and a jump button.
There's a baseball bat.
Yeah, the baseball bat's like a melee weapon. It was put in because people wanted a melee weapon, and because I needed a counter to people spamming bombs all over the place. So you can charge up your bat, and if people spam bombs on them, then swing the bat, all the bombs go away.
So you can bat bombs away.
Yeah, you can also, if I'm trying to avoid putting too many like custom programmed things in there and more just rely on the mechanics themselves to create fun gameplay. But there is a custom programmed thing where if a bomb is moving towards you in the air when you swing the bat and it hits it, it will reflect exactly back.
Ah, interesting.
So if you time it right and somebody throws a bomb at you, you can reflect the bomb directly back into them.
Huh. But you have to do it perfectly. Is that how you're keeping people from just spamming bat all the time?
Keeping people from spamming bat because you have to charge it up.
Ah, got it.
And it slows your movement when you're charging.
Sure.
There's power-ups. There's power-ups and mechanics to get around that, which make it really fun. A lot of the ones I recently added, I added ice, which is just slidey. So if you're sliding on the ice, you're not slowing down when you're charging the bat. So you can actually launch yourself on the ice, so you're sliding towards someone and charge the bat, and you're still sliding towards at your normal speed towards them.
Ah, interesting. So on that stage, being bat heavy might be a little bit more to your advantage.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, because if you use the bombs, you'd be able to destroy the ice and therefore screw the other guy over who's just trying to slide around.
Yeah, well, or, if you just hit someone with a bomb, you're stunned for a short period of time, and you can't change your direction on the ice unless you jump.
Ah, got it.
The ice has no friction. So right now, to change your direction, you have to jump to catch friction on the air, which probably doesn't make too much sense, but it's fun. It's fun mechanically.
So this time around, it sounds like you were almost solely focused on mechanics for the player to explore for their own sake, but also to use to explore what other people are going to do and communicate with the other people they're playing with as a way to social lubricant these fun video games these days. Towerfall being one of them. You've played that.
It's a little bit different. Yeah, I've played Towerfall. This is a little different because Bombernauts is online multiplayer only. There's no local mode yet. I think most people understand why there's no local mode and they actually play it themselves, but it's a bit hard to explain.
I figure it's because of screen real estate, but I don't know.
Yeah, screen real estate is a big deal. Visibility is a big deal because as the level is fully destructible, you can obscure yourself behind blocks pretty easily. So you can rotate the camera increments of 90 degrees so that you get a better view of your character. And there's also a crop circle effect. So when you're behind a block, all the blocks in front of you get opened up and you can see through them.
Oh, okay.
So doing anything with a local mode in the game requires making special levels for it that do not have too much verticality to them, so that you don't get obscured by blocks too much. And it requires having a smart camera that can catch everyone at the same time. And I have to make sure that none of the levels, if someone's cutting out the blocks in front, then what if someone else is platforming on those? It's just
wow. Yeah.
I'm not focusing on local mode right now, but I probably will add something into it in the future. It just requires a different camera angle, some different solutions to those problems, some different levels.
If the Wii U sold better, I guess one way of solving it would be one person plays off the gamepad and the other one plays off the TV, so you have two.
Right.
screens.
That also requires making the game more fun for one versus one.
Right.
It's getting which is difficult. It's been getting more. It's been getting better.
Okay.
All the mechanics I've been adding, have been making it more fun for 1v1. As a side effect of making it more fun for like the free-for-all mode, that's like the main point of the game.
Sure.
But the ice levels in particular are really fun 1v1.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got enthusiasm about them. They do sound fun. No, but no campaign mode for sure, or maybe.
We're gonna put it on early access eventually. Soonish. I'm not gonna announce a date because every time I announce a date, it just goes out the window, and then it's another month or another 2 months after that.
Sure.
Whatever. But it's going to go on early access. It's been in development for a while, like 2 years, I think, a little over 2 years, but not like full-time 2 years.
Right.
Because I've been working on other things and prototypes and other, random game jam stuff, and all sorts of little things in between working on Bombernauts. But it's still been a while. So the game, I'm saying that when it goes into early access, it's going to be like 85% done. All the important features are in place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting it on there because it's the first multiplayer game I've ever made. So I want to make sure that all the network bugs are sorted out before I call it complete. I want to make sure that the balance is good before I call it complete. And I want to give an opportunity for people to put input into the game and, suggest ideas and features and stuff.
Sure.
So if there's a lot of demand for a single-player campaign mode, I'm not against putting that in.
Right.
But I don't think there's going to be a lot of demand for a single-player campaign mode.
Or even like challenge mode,
or even like challenge mode, because I can contrive challenges for the game. There's definitely going to be AI bots at some point. That's like one of the main features I want to add. That's going to be like probably one of the last things that gets added to the game. But AI bots, just so you can put yourself versus 3 bots and have some fun with that.
Sure. As I know video game players, but who knows if I know them, because I'm old. I don't know what 12-year-olds are like these days. I don't talk to them a lot. I interact with them on the internet because sometimes they're commenting on our website, and I write back to them because I'm a respectful dude. But still, I don't. Maybe I'm out of touch. Very open to that fact that it's very likely true. But I feel like people still just think like, well, if there's no campaign, forget it. Like they didn't say it about Titanfall, but actually
or Dota or League of Legends or.
Yeah.
I don't think people would be mad if StarCraft didn't have a campaign.
Yeah, true. But they would be mad if, like, they were kind of mad that Titanfall didn't. And they were kind of mad that, or they at least really love the Towerfall challenges and stuff like that. I've heard plenty of people say that just knowing that they're there makes them feel like they got a whole game, as opposed to Samurai Gun, which I also love, but a lot of people say, like, there's not enough single player. It doesn't feel like it's
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit different considering it's online multiplayer.
Right. So the fact
you can have no friends and play the game.
Which is maybe what they're saying.
It's probably a bit of a cruel way to put it, but or you can have your friends spread out across the world and play the game, which is an important thing because as you get older, as you move on with your life and your friends move on with their life, it can be hard to stay in touch with people. It can be hard to have a group of local friends you can get together and game with. Like I used to do that in high school all the time.
Sure.
After I had my car for like the 1 year of high school that I had a car, you could go over to a friend's house and play some Super Smash Bros. Or whatever.
Sure.
But you can't really do that now. Like you're friends with everyone that you used to do that kind of stuff with moves to different parts of the country, different countries of the world.
Sure. Gets married.
All the friends that I know that I meet at conventions are from everywhere. But it's hard to just play games with people locally. So I do think there's absolutely a big demand for games that can be like as fun as a local multiplayer game, but are designed for online.
Right. And meeting people through Bombernauts. You may be like, I want to interact with a human being. Maybe I'll meet them in Bombernauts and then end up chatting about it later. Yeah, maybe you will.
Maybe we will. I know I've made random friends from playing like Dota and StarCraft and stuff, but
sure, happens all the time. Or just watching somebody play it, and then in the Twitch chat you get to talking, or any number of ways. A question came in from Devander A. Art. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Sounds like DeviantArt almost, like a secret
DeviantArt
name. He or she asks, what is the last game you started but decided not to finish? And why didn't you? Why didn't you finish it?
I'm going to ignore the Ludum Dare games where I spent like an hour on, or anything that I just brainstormed an idea for I never finished.
I don't know if he means making or playing it either, so maybe you can do both.
I'll just do making for now.
Sure, let's do it.
I had this prototype for a game. I wonder if it still runs, and I'm hesitant to share my screen since there's stuff on my desktop that's secret and shouldn't be shown. But
well, not to the live stream. I'll keep your secrets, of course, but the live.
Yeah, I think I can cover it up. Let's try. I'm gonna see if it runs.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it runs.
It's a video game?
Yeah. Let's see.
Is it number 2?
No.
Because that would be a good name for a video game, Tyler. Number 2.
Two.
Get it? Because you made a video game called
How do
Number.
I do share screen on this?
Oh, beats me. He's pressing a button, probably. Didn't you make a video game called Number? Am I remembering that right?
Oh yeah, I made a game called Number. That game was awesome.
You say awesome or awful or both?
Awesome.
It is pretty awesome. Number. You have to add a number. Capture? Do you press capture? There's a screen share. If you head over to the left side, can't believe I'm telling you a thing about
Oh yeah,
computers.
no, I got it.
Yes.
I got it. Let's try this one right here. I believe I have everything blocked out. That's not supposed to be shown. I don't know how Google Hangouts is going to handle it. Oh god, I'm getting killed.
Whoa! I'm seeing a black screen. I'm seeing brains. I'm seeing a bear block.
Do you see?
Yeah, what's going on in this world? This is
So I have a whole bunch. I have it's probably running really slowly on Google Hangouts, but I have this. Oh god, that guy went out of the map. I have these little minion guys that follow you around, and you can. Oh god, and you can just. This is kind of like a Pikmin kind of game.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Huh. And you made these graphics, or these programmer graphics?
These are programmer graphics.
They're charming. I'm charmed.
Right now you can't die, so I'm not really worried about running out of health. You'll just have no health.
So it's like you have to care about the children who are little yous and kill the giant.
They copy what you do, so yeah.
All right. Huh, interesting. When did you start working on this?
This was a while ago. Oh god, I killed one.
How long did it take for you to throw this idea together?
I think this was like 1 or 2 months of work. I think most of the work on here was trying to get the rendering right. All these graphics were drawn in Flash and they're rendered as vector.
Whoa, what the hell is that? Who is that smiling blob of a...
The best part about this guy is that there's no limit for how many times he divides right now. Oh, you can divide him down into like a million little guys.
He is a smarmy, smug, proud of himself, green blob, the kind I'm accustomed to seeing in the Legend of Zelda video game.
Yeah,
and,
so right now he can divide infinitely.
What a dick. So right now you can never die, and he can never stop dividing, he or she.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I know. So there was a lot that was going to go into this game, and there was some reason. Actually, I think no, there is a limit to how many times he could divide. I guess I did add that eventually.
How many different enemies did he come up with? Just the 2?
That was all there was right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back to the camera.
Okay. There you are.
Yeah.
So
that was probably the last game that I started that, and I ended up not finishing it because I think it was there was a design issue with it where there wasn't enough player interaction.
Ah, all right.
So the whole core point of the game was that these little guys, you don't control the little guys directly. They just sort of copy what you do, but they also have their own. They also have a mind of their own a little bit.
Sure.
And the problem with that was that I really wanted it to be that you had to like care for each of them individually. Like if one of them died, that was supposed to be like a big deal. But that doesn't really work. If you think about a game like Pikmin, you don't really care if one Pikmin dies.
I know people won't play Pikmin.
Emotionally, you probably care if one Pikmin dies, but strategically speaking, a point of the game is that you go in with 100 of Pikmin, you fight a fight, you're probably going to lose like 10 to 15 of them.
Sure.
The more that you bring into a fight, the less you're going to lose. So there's like a power in numbers kind of thing there, but losing a guy is not a big deal.
Right.
In this game, it was supposed to be a big deal because those guys were also your inventory, so they would carry items for you.
Oh, interesting.
That's a mechanic that I probably want to come back to at some point because it's a cool mechanic.
Sure.
If you think about it, you need the guys to be fighters, but you also need them to hold items for you, so you get a balance between holding items or not holding items and having a weapon instead.
Yeah. And then keeping them alive just for their weapon, but at the same token, if you don't use them, then what use is giving them a weapon if you're just worried about protecting them so you keep them safe all the time? It is a lot like, I see Pikmin, and I wrote about this in the Pikmin 3 review, and a lot of people said fuck you. You shouldn't have said that about the Pikmin 3 remake. Got so mad about it. That I saw it as a metaphor for where Miyamoto is in his career right now. He's got to manage like 100 people who have minds of their own, and he has to care about them, but he also has to use them to get the task done, and they may get hurt or get killed, but it's he can't do it directly anymore. The games are on such a scope that he's working on now that he needs a team.
Yeah.
And needs to have that team dynamic. So yeah, and you have a team as well, I think, don't you? Or are you all alone still?
Oh no, I usually work with people, like artists and musicians and stuff. But
I thought so. Yeah. So you're a team player.
Yeah, I don't think because
leader.
I'm not a good artist and I'm not a good musician and stuff. But yeah.
I don't know about that. I like those squares you drew.
Oh yeah, no, I spent a lot of time animating those squares.
Well, I do hope you get back to that idea, though. That seemed like
it won't be in that exact form because, like I said, there's not enough interaction. Like you could dash, so like every fight that would be interesting would be attack the guy, and when you see him projects his attack, I think it's not the right word. I'm trying to remember, but when you see him like start winding up an attack,
telegraph his attack.
It's telegraph. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you see him telegraph an attack, dash away, let him hit the ground, and then dash back and attack. That was like every enemy would be that. And
that's how Pikmin works too, and it's pretty involving.
It's a little different, but yeah, so it works in Pikmin because you can lose them without it being a big deal.
Right. Interesting.
So you can make a decision like, do you want to just beat this guy down and lose a couple Pikmin, and do it fast, or do you want to really protect every single one and make it take like an hour? Like that's an interesting
sort of limit going too. So you're thinking, oh, I'm waiting.
Right. So those mechanics work together in an interesting way, and that like StarCraft also, like you have an RTS. It's not that big of a deal if you lose a single guy, so you can make a decision if you want to risk losing a guy or not. But that wasn't, I didn't want that. I wanted it always to be the case where you don't want to lose your guys in this game. Place limits on the mechanics. Enemies have to telegraph their attacks really hard in advance because the dash takes some time. All the little guys take a little bit of time to react to it. To dashing away, so
much in every time you tweak one little thing, it changes the entire dynamic. Good grief.
Yeah.
Game design. I don't know how you do it.
It's tough. Sometimes you just find a design that works, like Bombernauts, Closure took a lot of effort to make work, but Bombernauts just sort of work.
But now it's just getting everything right where you want it. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm getting a text message from Sinistar saying we've done the full hour and a half already. It whizzed by for me. I don't know what you do. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was a great time, Tyler. Thanks for being on. People can follow you on Twitter.
You're
at Tyler Glaiel on Twitter. You've got a .com. I've seen it.
Yep. TylerGlaiel.com or Glaiel.net goes to the same thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. And there's tons of stuff you've done on the internet. It was hard to, if you go to TylerGlaiel.com, you don't see everything because it would be hard to sum it all up there. You got links to Closure, the Basement Collection, which has Aether on it. Got a link to Bombernauts on there, which is not yet released, but you're working on it. But there's tons more. You can research this guy's
And Game Webcomic, which is probably one of the greatest things I've ever done.
Game Webcomic. We didn't even talk about that.
We didn't talk about that. There's not too much to talk about with Game Webcomic. You can just go and read it, and you guys will understand.
As for me, I'm at Tronauts on Twitter. You can follow me there to find out what I'm doing. I recently did an Attack on Titan recreation. I recreated the Attack on Titan opening for some reason. I don't know why I did it, but I did. And I did it with amiibos, for God's sakes. I played one of the Titans, two of them actually. I played two characters in this Attack on Titan remake opening. Watch that if you want. You can go to Destructo.com where things are happening that I'm doing. You can watch reruns of the show later, youtube.com/SupHolmesShow. You can also listen to it on Libsyn and iTunes. It's fun. I think most people like it in podcast form. But people, if you're listening to it, go find the YouTube version and watch the amazing graphics that Tyler Glaiel made that I got to see where he fought a blob as a bunch of square people. That was a lot of fun for me. Yes, great. All right.
Fun being on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.